Hey folks, welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. Thank you for tuning in. And wherever you are today, I hope it's progress, and I hope that you're moving somewhere closer to where you want to be. I've been feeling pretty good lately. I've had a really great string of really exciting interviews that I'm very excited about. So I have been enjoying having these conversations and getting to share them with you on this podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in for these. On the show today is comedian Harrison Greenbaum. Harrison, I have a lot of interesting connections with. Not only was he one of those comics that I would see every single night out doing open mics when I first moved to New York City and started doing stand-up, but a few years later, I came to be engaged to his sister's best friend. So there's interest. Not only do we have this comedy connection, but then we also have this other connection as well. And he's a guy who has always been very nice to me. I've always found him very funny. And every time I've kind of been frustrated with what to do next when it comes to stand up, he's always been very generous and with information and with advice. So it was really great to sit and talk with him. In addition to being a stand-up comedian, Harrison also is a magician, and he's a magician in his own right. When we talk about this in the podcast as well, I wouldn't call him a comedy magician in the traditional sense that you would maybe some performers in the 80s. Like, I think he could very much be a comedian. He can very much be a comedian with no magic, and he can very much be a magician without doing stand-up. So I find him to be a really well-rounded performer, and he tells some incredible stories of performing magic at the Sydney Opera House in Australia, and he's also had some amazing to listen to encounters with legends of stand-up comedy. So I'm really excited to bring this interview to you guys. If you enjoy this and you think you know someone who might enjoy it as well, feel free to send them a link. We are on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm hoping to get on Spotify and Pandora someday. If anyone listening to this works for Spotify, could you please approve my show so I could get it on? Thank you. But we are currently on iTunes and Stitcher. You can add us to your faves playlist on Stitcher, or you can subscribe on iTunes. Ratings and reviews are very appreciated. You can follow me on Twitter at @ComicWillCarey. And if you enjoy the show, message me. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. At @ComicWillCarey on Twitter. You can follow the podcast at AwesomeDPod. And if you want me to come do stand-up in your city, I want to come do stand-up in your city, so message me. Or even if you just enjoyed the show, if it made your day better in some way, I would love to hear that, because sometimes it is much better than when I first started. But when you're creating stuff that you're releasing out onto the internet, it's hard to not feel like you're just shouting into a void sometimes. So if I'm connecting with you in some way, I want to hear from you as well, and you can message me on Twitter at @ComicWillCarey. And thank you guys very much for being here. And let's go to my chat with comedian Harrison Greenbaum.
I guess there's very little value other than trying to hear if people are uncomfortable.
Right. That's what I feel like. That's more of like a web stream thing, like a more because there's like a certain visual element that you would need to
that's fair.
To do a naked podcast.
That's right. Absolutely.
I think I met you like when I first moved to New York City.
Yeah.
I moved in 2010. And I remember seeing you at I would always see you at the Pit really late at night, and and I remember this. I don't know if you remember this or not, but you remember when the comic strip you had to do the late night audition.
Yeah, you had to line up. I think like 300 or 400 people show up now.
Yeah, or something crazy like that, and then you get a date like months in advance. I don't know if you ever saw it, but there's video of your audition. And then I think one of the comics on the panel who judges
Patrice.
You is Patrice O'Neal.
Yeah.
And it's in the same video, a friend of mine who I haven't seen in a long time, Michael Shockey, gets annihilated by Patrice. And then I think he had the stroke like maybe a month later.
Well, yeah. So the piece that's missing, I remember that video. So I did the thing, There's a lot of like inside politics with that, because what happened was there was the audition, and then I think it was Jim Mendrinos who had the idea of turning it into like a televised game show, because he was like the EP of the project.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden the lottery went from this thing that was sort of helpful to comedians to it was sort of, not that it wasn't helpful, but I think it became a very different animal for like that year, where it was a televised game show, and so there was like these famous comedians on a panel,
Right.
and then they tried to pass. Usually they would pass one per episode, which means out of the 4 people that did it, there'd be like one person would get passed, and sometimes there were ringers on it. So if you had a ringer on your episode, I think you kind of had no chance of getting to late night. And they were passing one per episode, which is once a week, which is too many comics. So there was this like huge bloat on the actual late night list, because there were so many comics who were getting passed, more than normal. Sometimes they would, you can do weeks without passing anybody from the audition. But the weird thing was, I remember Patrice talking to me, and then later, like a few months later, because the timeline was that he had a stroke not soon after that.
Yeah.
Or soon after that. But I was opening for Paul Mooney at Caroline's, and I was doing that every other week, because he literally, there was this slot at Caroline's on Fridays and Saturday nights at 12:30. So after the 2 main shows, he could draw. So Caroline's was like, if you want to do this basically twice a month, please come. Like this.
How cool.
It's a freebie for us, because you just have everybody stay late.
Right.
So I ended up becoming his opener, and I found out later that Louis Ferrand, the booker, had presented me to Paul, and Paul was like, no. And Louis was like, you haven't even seen him. And he's like, I don't need this white boy. And he was like, just give him one shot, and if you don't like him, you'll never have to see him again. So I went up, and then he went to Louis and said, anytime he wants to open, which is amazing. I didn't find that out till way later. Thank God. Otherwise, I think that would have been a little bit jarring. So I ended up opening for this guy for 2 years. Wow. It was a lot of hanging out in Caroline's till 5 o'clock in the morning, because I think Caroline's would have been okay if I left without saying like thank you, good night. But I would do a set, which by the way ranged from 15 minutes to 70, because it depended on whenever Paul got there, they would give me the light, and then I'd wrap it up. But we didn't know when Paul would get there, so the show would start. If the show was a 12:30 show, it would start at 12:45. You give him 15 minutes just to start this. You can start the show a little bit late, and then you keep going till it gets there. And there was a couple of times where he didn't show up. There's one time where he just didn't show up.
Oh my God.
So I did 70 minutes, and then I got a note saying like, you're gonna have to tell these people that we can refund their tickets, but we can't refund their food or drink. I was like, oh my God, they just paid to see me headline, which is not at all what they were looking to do.
They were coming to see Paul Mooney.
Yeah, and I'm the literal opposite of that in every way.
But that's why I think it would make sense for you to open up for him, because I mean, he's an older black man doing socially astute racial comedy, and you are a kind of silly white guy.
Yeah.
And
I could tell how he thought I did, because he's sort of, I would say, aggressive anti-white in a way, like in a very funny way, but the idea is definitely like, white people suck, huh? And that's totally a valid viewpoint. And now,
oh my God,
I think now he could do even more. Like, I think I'm sad that he's kind of sick and not doing it as much, but this is his moment. Like, oh my God.
I know.
As anybody who's been talking about white privilege for 50 years, it's been Paul. But Paul would either, if I had a good set, he would say, give it up for the Jew. And then he would do his first bit about how Jews aren't white. He's like, if you think Jews are white, like tell them at the Klans meeting to tell you how white you are. And that was his way of saying like, oh no, he's not white. That's why he did well with us.
Sure.
And then if I was having a harder time, he'd go, give it up for the brave little white boy. So either way, he kind of won.
So
which
he
was
had
great.
The good killer line, regardless of
Either way.
Wow.
But the reason I bring him up is Patrice was opening before Paul. So it was Patrice for the 8:30 and the 10:30, and then Paul would be the 12:30. And I was like, I'm coming early because I need to see Patrice live do his headlining set at Caroline's. Who knew that would be the last, like basically the last performance he ever did.
Yeah.
So we're and I remember in the dressing room, one of the waiters was like, he just ordered like 2 pizzas and like all these fruity like alcoholic beverages. This guy has diabetes. Like I don't feel good giving it to him. And we were all like, yeah, I mean, I think you kind of have to, but like, ugh, yeah, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, and Patrice O'Neal is not the guy you want to say, hey, I don't think it's healthy for you to eat this.
Yeah, but then he had a stroke like 3 days later, so the waitress was 100% correct.
Right.
But every time I would go on at Paul, so if you headline 2 shows at Caroline's, you have all these people, all these fans, and Patrice would sit there in the back of the room because Paul's show were usually like more half full, so they can close the curtain.
Right.
So he'd sit like against the curtain, and he would watch me do 45 minutes. And I was like, why is he watching me do 45 minutes? And then Paul would go up, and then he'd watch Paul for like 10 minutes, and then Patrice would leave. And I was like, that was weird. And then he did it again. And instead of leaving, he comes backstage and he goes, "Hey, you the kid that opened?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Did you audition for the comic strip?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Dude, you don't need that shit. You're funny. Funny is funny. And you're professional, and just like keep doing what you're doing." It was like so effusively nice. And so the joke was that was the day that his heart grew, and that's why it seized. But I think I'm the cause. But it was this like unbelievable moment where I was like, holy crap. Like, because he was so notoriously mean. Like he would go up to new comics and like rip their headshots up and like throw them. Or he'd like buy your album just to break it in front of you. Like he would do that at like Montreal. Like he was notorious for that stuff.
Oh, wow.
And he was so nice. He watched me do 2 45-minute sets just so he could be like, "I know you did that weird game show thing, but like, don't worry about that game show thing."
Yeah.
Like you're doing the real work. And it was incredible. It was incredible. And then for him to like pass away 3 or 4 days later was insane. Because I was like, I had this crazy connection. I was so excited about it.
Right.
And it was just I saw a side of him that rarely, I think few people rarely did.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that's a moment. That's like a story that I love to hear, because I feel like sometimes the animal of stand-up comedy in New York City is such like, it's like trying to figure out like a really complex math equation. Like, oh, how do you get this booker's attention? How do you get this club's attention? And I feel like so many of my friends for the longest time and me were just like ripping our hair out trying to figure it out. But as frustrating as the answer is, again, funny is funny doing the real work. And like, that's great that he was recognizing that. My experience of the comic strip live auditions was not that.
Was it the game show still, or this was post?
I did three, and I haven't been there recently, but I did 2 with just the old manager JR.
Yes.
But my experience with the game show version with like Sherrod Smalls and everybody, Modi said something incredibly hurtful to me, and
Modi,
and something about, and then he went on some rant about alt comedy, because I wasn't very lively on stage at the time. I think I've gotten better at kind of moving around and being more how I am in real life on stage. And then Dante Nero, I can't remember the third guy, but Dante Nero, I think all he said was that I had childbearing hips. And that's the only time I've left a show and called a friend. I called my friend Leo and was like, "Why am I doing this to myself, man? They're so mean here." Yeah. And then I saw Dante like...
I was frustrated with the game show part of it, because the strip, it felt like this pure thing that was... It was such a wonderful thing when you hear about it, where you go like, wow, there's at least one club in the city where if you just line up, they will give you that audition. Whether you get it or not, but you'll at least get an audition. Some clubs, you can't even audition for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, this is such a pure thing. And then the game show thing, I think I knew what they were trying to do. But unfortunately, it basically took all these comics who were going to do it no matter what, and just ripped apart people at the hardest part of their career. We're like, these are new comics. Like, of course they suck.
Yeah.
So that always feels rough. Like that's the time where you got to be like, all right, like you do suck, but I'm not saying you, but I'm saying, like,
oh yeah, no, of course.
Like in general, like most of the people on that line probably are not ready, but keep working at it.
Yeah. Yeah, keep working at it, because they don't. I guess maybe there
are people on that line. Have you ever talked to people on the line? I remember talking to them and being like, some guy's like, "I've never done stand-up comedy. I can't wait." And you're like, "Get off the line."
Right.
This isn't for you.
This is not for you. This is for people who have been doing this for years, and this is like a semblance of an opportunity. Yeah.
And then I remember I was with a comic on the other side who was a real comic, and I was like, oh man, how do you prevent those people from glutting up the line? Because that's why we're waiting 6 months for an audition, is because you have these people.
Right.
How do you determine that somebody deserves it? And someone's like, well, one is somebody like, you knew another comic who's already passed. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And that we basically invented the Comedy Cellar system. As you talk through it, you end up with, oh yeah, you just need 2 comics who are passed at the club to recommend you. And you're like, oh, okay, that's why the Cellar does it that way. You eventually just invent that system.
Yeah, exactly, which is a pretty good system, because, I mean, if you're thinking about like showcase stand-up comedy where you see a bunch of people do 10 minutes, that's the best room in New York doing that, I think. And then I would say like, and I feel more like an outsider commenting as a fan. And then you look at like, I think Caroline's, maybe Gotham are like the best headlining clubs in New York.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although the Village Underground is doing a really good job, which is part of the Cellar. But they're doing an amazing job of giving like headliner nights on like Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, whatever.
Yeah.
And that room is such a hot room that like I think there are some people who are starting to do those one nighters there because it's like such a great space.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%. And you do the Cellar, yeah?
Yeah.
What's your experience of shows there? Are those? I hear it can be a very tough room, but it's a amazing room.
I don't think it's ever been tough. I mean, I think because everybody who's there is there to see comedy. Like when something is sold out that much, there's so many people being turned away. So you actually have an audience that kind of is self-selecting. Like we are going to see the best comedy show in New York. So it's not that like I was conned on the street corner and sold a ticket. I didn't know I was going to see comedy that night. Making me laugh because I feel like this could be a scam. These are people who like waited a long time to see it, and they're told that everybody in the lineup in their head, they're like, if I don't know who that person is. It's only because that person hasn't broke yet, but if the Cellar put them on, they must be good. So you're walking up with this, the audience has this feeling of like, they must be good if they're here. So I think that makes it a lot easier for you. There are certain nights where it's very like touristy, like it's all tourists, and they're there because they were told like when you come to New York, you must see the Cellar. So they might even speak English, but they just want to say that they were there. So those can be slightly tougher, but also you have great hosts. Like you have some of the best hosts in the city. So even in those hard rooms, you have people at least who are in the front of it, like making sure that works the best that it can.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great to hear these stories from you of doing the best rooms in the city. Like I remember one time just seeing you like on the street down in the Village, like, oh hey Harrison, and I think you were on your way to the Cellar. It's because I remember when we were just like doing the 2-minute pit mics, trying to see if like the new bit works, and then and also because. And it's interesting because I feel like I have a lot of secondhand knowledge of
and it was all those guys. I remember we were all at the pit, and I was like Norman and Sam and all those. Everybody was waiting. It's amazing to see everybody like have hour-long specials. It's incredible.
And the host of one of those 11 o'clock open mics, Michelle Wolf, is being attacked by the president now.
Yeah, exactly.
She's like a legitimate part of the pop culture zeitgeist right now, and I think that's just so trippy because. And to think that I remember, because I've heard, because I'm marrying your sister's best friend.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard
bury the lead.
Yeah, bury the lead. So I've heard the origin story of you is that, like, first off, I guess your sister and Chelsea used to drink on your tab at Caroline's a lot and then just run out.
Yeah.
And I've heard of you like doing like the 6 o'clock or like 5 o'clock shows at Caroline's is when you first started comedy, right?
Well, I think I was like, I never did the bringer shows at Caroline's. I did 2 bringer shows in my life. The first one, I didn't know what a bringer show even was. So I was like, wow, they love me. Like I sent an email. I would just go on Craigslist and I would search for comedy and I would send an email to literally anybody who said we have a comedy show. So somebody had posted, it was a bringer show, but it listed as come do perform at New York Improv at the time, which is now Broadway. But I was like, okay. So I sent in my thing. And I got an email back like, we loved your tape. We just request that everybody brings friends so there's a crowd. But other than that, like they kind of hid the bringer-itness of it.
Sure.
And Mike Vecchione hosted it.
Oh, Mike, he's so fucking funny. I love that
Unbelievable.
guy.
One of the best. But I just remember that. So that was the first bringer. It was the first like real show in the city. And then I did another show where my friend, you only had to bring 4 friends, 4 people. And my best friend in the world since kindergarten, Andrew Eden, he did stand up briefly and he had like 8 friends showing up. So it's like, why don't I come and like claim 4 of these friends and I can get on. And the person who booked it was super unhappy with that. But I was like, that fair is fair. You said 4 people and he brought 8. So that counts as 2 spots.
Exactly.
If you're going to make math based on number of people, I have not changed your math.
Oh yeah. 100% is just like, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh man. Bringers. I did the last time I did in New York. I tried to do a bringer at Comics. That's how long ago this was. And then everyone bailed on me. And then I just had to go and sit in the crowd with my 2 friends who did show up. And then I did one at New York Comedy Club trying to like, doing the thing of like, trying to get somebody to notice me. That didn't really work.
It's hard.
But it's so hard. And it's not the path in. Like a lot, it's presented as such of like, because I see like so many posts of like, Gaffigan did our shows, or like when he was starting. I'm like, that's probably not what made him Jim Gaffigan.
Yeah. Well, no, Gaffigan does like, I was at Gotham the last 2 nights, or no, it was Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
I was in New Jersey last night.
Oh, cool.
But I was closing out the new talent nights.
Uh-huh.
And Gaffigan dropped by on Tuesday and Seinfeld dropped by on Wednesday. And it was like nuts. And it's like, I can only imagine if my first Springer show, where I'm bringing my family and friends and like I'm going up after or before Seinfeld, like that's insane.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. And if it's probably maybe your like your sixth or fifth or maybe probably first or second set. Yeah. That's got to be like, it's like that's not what this is going to be, kid. But I'm glad you had this.
Yeah, and then the bringer that had to follow Seinfeld, it's like, oh my god. Like that's where you're like, all right, we need to have some kind of pro follow that just to make sure that that could be a hard spot.
Yeah, that's a real hard spot. So, and you're from the New York area, right?
Yeah. Dina and I grew up in Long Island.
What town in Long Island?
We were in the 5 towns in Woodmere.
Okay.
So right near JFK Airport.
Oh, okay. So if Jamaica's like right here, so that's like the other side.
Like if it's like Long Island is a fish with like the tails are like Montauk. So we're right in like the mouth, like the jaw, the bottom jaw of the mouth.
Gotcha. Okay. So were you on the water?
There was like a little lake behind our house. We're not on the ocean though. We're like 15 minutes from the ocean.
Oh, okay. So what is Woodmere like? Because my understanding of Long Island is it's either super like bros who are looking to move to New Jersey eventually, or I've also heard some parts of Long Island can be kind of dicey. So what is Woodmere?
It's not dicey at all. I mean, it's very suburban. It's the rich area is Hewlett. So you're like, whoa, the people in Hewlett, oh boy, with their mansions. But we were like Hewlett School District was like the one with all the money, and Lawrence was the school district with all the problems.
Oh, okay.
So we did have neighborhoods that were slightly dicier. Like there was like gang fights once in a while in our high school. But it was a really nice place to grow up.
Oh, cool. And it was just you and your sister?
Yeah.
And what did your parents do?
My dad's in real estate. My mom does some real estate stuff as well. My mom also ran for school board and won. And so she was very involved in like school politics and stuff. And that was very crazy at the time because the Orthodox Jewish population all goes to yeshiva. And 50% of the population of the 5 towns was going to yeshiva. And they realized they can all vote as one block.
Right.
So they started voting in private school parents. And they were like, well, our school, we pay tuition for our schools. And it's very high. So we'd really appreciate not having to pay taxes for your school, which is like the exact opposite. Like the agreement is you're going to pay your taxes for public school, but if you want to opt out, that's going to cost you. So they kind of flipped it. This is happening in a couple of other school districts as well, but they just kept gutting the budgets for the public school so their taxes would go down, essentially.
Oh, wow.
And it was, the budgets for Lawrence ended up in austerity. And I think the Lawrence school teachers for the last 5 years, some have been operating without a full contract because they won't even sit down with them.
Oh my gosh.
Because every contract for a union usually is like, we want to get up this much and we want to, up the benefits this much.
Yeah.
And I think they came to the table like, we're not upping anything. And they were like, then we're not going to sign off on anything. So it was really crazy. It was really, really crazy to have a school board that slowly but surely became dominated by parents who had no interest in the public schools. And it's a public school board.
Yeah, that's insane. And so in a situation like that, would that lead to the teachers going on strike? Because my mom was an elementary school teacher for a number of years. And in Maryland, you could do work to rule, but you weren't allowed to strike.
Yeah, I think in New York you can. I think there was there was some picketing that they did back in the day. And then I don't know what the situation is now. Unfortunately, I'm not following it as closely as I did when I was like in the middle of it.
Right.
My mom was like one of 2 public school parents left at a certain point.
Jesus.
And the elections were vicious.
I can imagine.
It was crazy.
So.
I remember they called my mom anti-Semitic, and she was like, "We're Jewish. Like, what are you talking about?"
Yeah, I'm not anti-Semitic.
My husband, my dad, her husband, my dad went to yeshiva. So like. It's not like he's anti-yeshiva. He went to yeshiva.
Right.
My cousins all still go to yeshiva. It was just about making sure the public schools had the budget, like not slicing away their budget to nothing.
Yeah.
To literally austerity, which is a term I had to learn. We were all learning that term. Like, what is austerity? Austerity is when you literally, because most people pay more than the legal minimum of what you're supposed to pay to the schools.
Right.
The schools have a legal minimum money they need for their budget. And I would argue most school districts are operating above austerity.
Right.
But they literally cut it down to austerity. They're like, we're giving you no additional money.
That's
which is
crazy.
insane.
I could just imagine the signs of like, if we had better funding, I would know what this word means.
Yeah, exactly. You start to go, what programs are you going to have to cut in order to make this thing work?
Right, and that's so insane. And it's just because these people wanted just, we just want to take care of ourselves, and we don't really care about
100%, which is the opposite of Judaism. That was the whole thing. That was, if you're supposed to be these super religious people, like, I'm pretty sure like there's a lot of rules in the Old Testament that prevent you from doing that.
Yeah, there's always been some like really ass backwards things that I hear about when I hear about stuff from the ultra Orthodox community, like the idea of like someone marrying a non-Jewish person and them not liking that. It just sounds so backwards to me. Or did you ever see the documentary Three Identical Strangers?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. I watched the documentary going into it. Spoiler alert if you want to watch it.
It's so good.
Skip forward for a second, but. Yeah, the Jewish adoption agency villain I did not see coming.
I know. Holy shit,
oh my
right?
God. Holy crap.
And I'm just thinking of anybody who would maybe know better at a time in history. Why would you do that?
Yeah, there's been all the Germans are experimenting on Jews, and you're like, that is awful. We're going to experiment on these babies.
Right.
That doesn't make it better at all. What the hell are you doing?
Not at all. It doesn't make it better that they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that documentary, that's up there in my like top. Like that tickled Dear Zachary, where there's just like that real like throw you for a curve twist in the middle where you're like, this can't be real.
I haven't seen that one yet, but what's that one about?
Tickled is great because it starts off as like, I'm gonna make a fun documentary about people who make tickling videos, but they're sinister. And the impresario of all the tickling videos is like this villain. And then Dear Zachary, the less you know about it, the better.
Okay,
and
I'll just watch that.
I watched it recently with somebody, and she was crying, like just bawling. I was like, this was the dumbest idea. Why are we watching this movie? Like it was like, let's just go to bed. Let's watch it. Let's put a little documentary on it. Just bawling.
Oh yeah. Well, that was my recent reaction. Chelsea and I just saw the movie Hotel Mumbai, which is about the Mumbai terrorist attacks in like 2009. It is.
I think any movie with hotel and then the name of a third world city is probably a sad movie.
Not
Hotel Rwanda,
good.
bad. Hotel Mumbai, sad. Hotel Syria, I'm not gonna watch it.
It's not going to be good. Even like Hotel Baltimore, if they made that movie, that wouldn't be good.
Yeah, Hotel Detroit, what a nightmare.
Basically, any movie where a hotel is happening is the center of the story. Tragedy is occurring.
Yeah, if you hear the title and you go, a hotel should not be there, that's the tip off.
Exactly.
Do not put a hotel there.
So you're having this kind of like classic suburban youth in
100%.
Long Island next to New York City. Did you go into the city often? I always feel like I've heard like comedians talk about like, crowds on Long Island. It's like, why do I have to play New York City and then also play Long Island? Won't Long Island just come to New York City? No, they won't.
No, they won't. Especially the suburban, like if you're parents and you have kids, you're like, I want to be able to drive 15 minutes. A lot of them also work in the city. So they're like, the last thing I want to do on the weekend is drive back to my place of work.
Right.
I want to stay where I paid for my house. And they're a very different audience, even the ones that are closer to the city. But my grandmother every year for our birthday, Dina and I, and all my cousins, she would take us to a Broadway show.
Oh, nice.
Which is like the greatest gift I've ever gotten. And so every year I would pick a show and we'd go in and we'd have lunch or dinner. Once I think I skipped school once. Like she took me out of school to see Phantom of the Opera, and I was a good teacher, so I was horrified. And like my parents were like, "Just go with this is fine. You'll survive. This is more worthwhile to you." So I remember going to see Phantom and then having the shit scared out of me. I was so scared of that show.
Oh, really?
It gave me nightmares. I was like the guy with the mask and the murder. It's a scary show for a child.
And the big scary piano chords and organ.
And the chandelier falling on your head. And like, it's scary. There's a guy swinging from the rafters. Like you see a guy being hung. And you're like, oh, this is not appropriate for I was like 7 or something.
What were some of the other shows you saw? What year is this? Is this like mid-90s?
Yeah. I was born in 86, so...
Oh, yeah, that's right. I looked up your Wikipedia page. I'm only a couple months older than you, so we're around the same age.
There you go, yeah. So, yeah, it's got to be the 90s. We saw everything. Every year we saw something different. I was trying to think of what... Rent I saw with my parents and sister. That was a non-grandma show. That I think my grandma liked more of the classics. The two shows you had to see with her... And she took every grandchild. She had 5. So she saw Les Mis 5 times and Phantom 5 times. Plus she saw it on her own. So she saw each one of those shows at least 6 times.
Jesus.
Yeah. So those were the like bookmark ones. Like you have to see Les Mis with her. You have to see Phantom. And everything else was kind of up for grabs. And then one of the first shows I ever saw with her and my mom actually was Cats. which I tried to rewatch recently because there's like a tape of it.
Yeah, I have the tape of Cats.
I thought, oh, I don't understand the show because I'm a child. And then I watched it as a grown adult and I was like, oh no, I didn't understand it because the show doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I have tried to watch Cats a couple times, but I don't think there's much of a plot. I think it's more or less the whole arc of Cats, from what I remember, is they introduce all the different names of the cats.
Yep.
And then there's like an old cat who's like past his prime and he cries and he's old. And then there's the cat who sings Memory, and then she like goes up into
and there's a tire that launches into the sky at some point.
Yeah. A tire's a big part of the show. I
like being in the audience. That was the big thing, was the theater, the Winter Garden was decorated in garbage. So it was the first immersive show. I think for a lot of people, they were like, whoa, they're in the audience and the audience feels like we're part of the garbage pile. I think that probably was exciting when there was nothing else like it on the market.
Right. Yeah, that was like a new thing. And now I'm a little bored with like the interactive theater. I'm just like, can you just like have a script and stay on the stage and not include me?
Oh, I love it. I'm like addicted to it. All you want to do is go to like weird immersive, like I love escape rooms. I love immersive theater. I love anything where I'm like involved and I get to like be in the story. Because that was my dream as a kid. Like I love theme parks. I love you play video games. I'm like, but there's got to be a better way than just playing a video game. It's like real life video game. Like, I have money. Let's do this. Here, take my money, please.
I could see that because I feel like when I've seen you in clubs, because I used to see you at the Laughing Devil all the time.
Yes.
When I was the door guy.
Yes.
And the thing the
bowling alley of comedy.
The bowling alley of comedy. I got threatened with physical violence at that club. I got I got to do a couple spots there eventually. It was a time in my life that I'm glad for. But I used to remember, I think you were performing there like when it first opened. So there was on the nights when there was like maybe when it wasn't sold out, you would like walk amongst all of the chairs.
Yes.
And then you would always talk to people in the bathroom.
Yes.
I remember that.
That was my real like Andy Kaufman phase. Like I just won the Andy Kaufman Award and I was like, I need to be more Andy. And I need to do that more though. I love doing that. But yeah, the venue had that weird decision of like the stage and then a curtain and then the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I was like one of the few comics who was like, if somebody goes to pee, you could literally kind of chase them. Like they can close the door, but you can hear them. So you can completely have a conversation with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was so fun because they thought they were safe because they had a closed door. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh no.
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, not right now. Anything but right now.
Exactly.
So when you were growing up in Long Island and going to musical theater, were you going to be a comedian? Did you think you were going to be a comedian?
No.
When you were
I didn't know I was going to be.
Age?
I was like everybody. I feel sad when everybody has that story of like I was 5 years old. I saw Richard Pryor. I was like, that's what I'm gonna do, and now I do it. If you caught me when I was a child, I'd be like, I'm gonna be a magician. Like I'm gonna be David Copperfield.
Oh really?
I love magic. I went to magic camp. I've been doing magic since I was 5. So my whole life was magic. Plus musical theater. I love musical theater and seeing the shows. And I would I remember intermissions. I'd always be like, I could do that. Like which I can't, but like in my head, I had such an intense desire to be on this stage and be part of the production. So I always wanted to be in theater and live stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until college where I started doing stand up and I was like, oh, I think this is actually, this engages so much, like all parts of my brain in a way that I really like.
Huh. So magic was early on for you.
Oh yeah.
And what drew you to magic?
Oh, it's like I've tried to figure it out. I mean, I think my dad showed me a trick when I was like 5 and I became obsessed. And my parents were very good about if I had an interest, they would support that interest, whatever it was. And probably to their horror, that interest never faded.
Right.
But they would take me to magic stores and I would see magic shows. And I remember seeing Joseph Gabriel and Magic on Broadway. And there was this Brooklyn Community College series. And I think I saw Lynn Daly, I think it was. But I saw magicians there. And then when I was 14, I went to magic camp, and that really sealed the deal. And I was like surrounded. I remember just being so excited because talking about living near the city, traveling to the city and being able to like go to Tannen's magic store was like the greatest experience in the universe.
Oh, wow.
Like going to a magic store, like it was a store that sold magic. Like how much better do you get? It's like better than a candy store.
Yeah. And then the guy like is showing you like, oh, this is a good trick. And does he show you how to do it, or do you have to
No,
like
he does
just
it
go
because
and
he's a
figure it out?
salesman. So he'll do a miracle and he'll be like $30. And you're like, oh, yes. I'll save all of my allowance. Please just tell me how to do that.
And okay, so and it was David Copperfield,
And then you buy it, by the way, and it's a suction cup. And you're like, God damn it.
it's like this probably should have been $15 or
The trick that I remember feeling the most burned, because you get magic catalogs. Now you can just watch YouTube videos, so I think you can't get away with it now. But I remember Magic Max, which was in Times Square before they really Disneyfied it. So my parents would like horrifyingly like take me to 42nd Street, and it's like sex shop, magic store, sex shop, Lion King. So that was the block. So I would go to Magic Max, and I got this beautiful catalog, and I would page through it, and it was like float anything, no wires, no threads, no magnets. And I would sit there trying to figure out how can you levitate something without any of those things. And I couldn't figure out how. Nothing supporting it, no wires. How can you float something without that? And I buy it, and it's this box, and it's a tiny box. I'm like, what's in this tiny box? And it cost me like $15 or something. And I open it up, and it's a fake thumb with a suction cup on the end. And so you're supposed to just like stick the suction cup on the object, if it'll hold, and then you kind of hold your hand in a way that they can't see the suction cup.
right.
I was like, God damn it. This is the worst.
Yeah, I've seen. I watched those like Secrets of Magic, that Secrets of Magic documentary with like the masked magician, and I think that's one of the ones he did, and I was like, hey, maybe we shouldn't know how the tricks are done. Right. Or like, or even like, I remember when I first heard who Chris Angel was, and I know like they had the joke everyone made about him is like, hey, he's kind of a douchebag with magic, but I legitimately thought the walking on water trick looked cool.
Yeah, it did.
It looks really cool, but then if you like really want to figure out how it's done, it's like, oh, he's just got clear platforms in the water and it's angled a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting too, because that was like sort of represented as if it was impromptu, and you're like, that requires a long setup,
right?
Like, and also this person who swims under it can't just be a regular person, because that person has to know that if they swim the wrong way, they're going to swim straight into a clear platform. So you have to swim exactly in the right area.
Right.
So there was a little bit of like fudging going on, but yeah, it's. People always, every time you do a trick, they go, how do you do it? And you're always like, you don't want to. Sometimes you do. Sometimes a method is so clever that I just want to tell somebody like, oh my God, you would not believe the lengths I've gone for this effect and how insane and like intricate and beautiful this thing is. But most of the time, it's really dumb. And if you find out, you're just going to be sad.
Right. Do you like Penn and Teller?
Love Penn and Teller.
I saw their show.
Love them.
I saw their show in Vegas last year. It was so fun.
Oh, it's so good. I saw them on Broadway when I was like, I think it was end of high school or beginning of college. And I was like, shit, like, why isn't all magic that cool? Like that good and that, like as a quote unquote comedy magician, I would just find myself as a comedian with magic as opposed to a magician with comedy.
Right. That's kind of
everybody else.
That's how I would describe you as well. Like, I think you're like, I feel like, because I feel like you could do either or if you had to.
That's how
one
I always
is not
describe
propping
it.
up the other.
I always tell people, I go like, if you want to just, why am I different than any other? Like we're close to Passover, so why is this a magician different than all other magicians? But it's because if you take away all of my props and you said do an hour, I could still do. I just headlined a show yesterday where I did an hour of just stand up.
I mean, you headlined opening for Paul Mooney, which I would argue is a hard.
For 7 days.
For a hard act to...
I would close with a trick, though, sometimes.
Nice.
That was 5 minutes.
Good.
But yeah, I don't know if there's any other musician currently working that is doing just pure stand-up also. There might be a few, and I'm blanking. But that's what I think keeps it fresh. And like the jokes in my magic act are real stand-up jokes.
Right.
And the rhythm is a real stand-up rhythm.
Totally.
And like Penn and Teller are some of those people where I was like, yeah, magic why is it magic? Why don't you know anything about a magician when they're done performing? Like, you don't know anything about who they are, other than that they're a magician.
Right.
And how come you don't like, what about an abortion card trick? Like, why can't you talk about a serious issue with magic? And Penn and Teller have been doing that for decades.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know any other magician that really is.
I can't think of any.
I don't think there are.
Yeah. So there's a market open if you're listening to this. Start developing.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Let me have this market. God damn you. No.
Could be the Bill Hicks of comedy magicians. Be like the first woke magicians. Just be like, I'm going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. A rabbit is a symbol for how capitalism is running rampant over our lives in American society.
Well, there are a couple of magicians who have attempted the terrible jam in a metaphor thing. Like, I'm going to talk about a very serious issue, but use a very magic-y magic trick. And that's like, Penn and Teller never did that. And I've been trying very hard, like, I'm going to do jokes about a topic and I'm going to talk about me, and like the jokes are all going to be very natural and like make sense. The idea of like the metaphor is always, because we'll have kids do that where they're like, they want to, because I magic camp, I judge the competitions.
Sure.
So you have everything on one end of the screen where you have a kid go, so on my business trip to China, and you're like, you're 7. That is, where did that story come from? Although I guess you have to be 10 to be at the camp. So he's 10. And then you have the other extreme where they're taking a standard trick and they're like, this represents my struggles with dyslexia. And it could be wonderful, but you don't ever want it to feel shoehorned in, because then it cheapens what you're saying.
Exactly.
And so we're trying to teach these kids how to like come from an authentic place.
That's great. That's really solid, and that's also what I think.
I once lost a ball to testicular cancer. Here's a sponge ball. And you're like, what? No, don't do that. Please don't do that.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you're teaching that, because again, like teaching someone to be authentically themselves, again, I feel is what will help them be unique. Because I think of, and this is something I've tried to move away from. Like when I first started doing comedy, I was like really focusing on like set up punchline kind of one-liners.
You have to.
You got to do that to learn joke structure. But now I feel like since the advent of Twitter, everyone can write the same joke really quickly. So I'm trying. So I'd been trying to focus more on, well, how can I do a joke or do a story that is very unique, that is very specifically how I would do something. And I feel like that you're teaching like authentic magic, I think, is great.
Yeah, it's all about that point of view. Like,
yeah,
I remember Rick Jenkins at the Comedy Studio. He was like, "It's going to take you 10 years. It takes 10 years to get like good." And in my head, I was like, "This is a Harvard brain being like, I'm going to beat that. I was going to work twice as hard and do it in 5." And you can't do that.
No.
It takes 5 years to learn the skills, the craft, the writing the jokes, how is a joke formed, how do you make your act better?
Right.
And then it takes another 5 years just to figure out how to use those techniques and put it in your voice.
Yeah.
And then you just begun your journey. Now,
Yeah.
10 years in, you're starting.
Yeah, exactly. And you're 10 years in and you've got like the foundation. Now you have to build on the foundation with all of that stuff you've been reading about, like marketing and catchphrases.
Right. Get her done.
Yeah. So now this is you say you don't have an origin story, but this is the origin story I've heard about you secondhand.
Ooh.
So I'm saying
Radioactive
this for
spider. Parents murdered.
I'm saying
I'm the
this
king
for
of a weird African country no one's heard of.
that would be great.
I'm going to combine them all.
It's like, oh yes, my parents were the king and then they were murdered, so I am now the king and my wife is the spider.
Yeah. He's white spider bat.
So I'm asking this for the listener. Where did you go to college? Harvard. Now, is Harvard the?
Did I say it with the right tone? There's no good way to say it. I could have been like Harvard, or like there's
Right.
no. I always feel like an asshole every single time.
Well, it's just
He says while sitting in my apartment, and then right over my shoulder is my diploma.
Oh yes, I'm looking at it right now. I didn't. Well, I guess it'd be better if you.
If I just pointed to it silently,
or if you just took it off the wall and we're just holding it the entire time we're having this conversation. So, I have two questions about Harvard. So my first question is it the academic excellence, like institution of like of brilliant minds, higher learning, like everyone who goes to Harvard is a million times smarter than the rest of the country? Is that what your experience of Harvard was? That you're like, oh, I'm among the greats of academia?
well, the professors for sure. Like, so every time you take a class, you're taking a class with the guy who wrote the textbook or like the seminal thing. So like everybody else is learning about like this study, and you're taking like in psych class, you're like, we're gonna study this unit on this guy. Like that guy would teach it. So like when I was doing my thesis, I was using a thing called the IAT, the implicit attitude test. So I got to like set up a meeting with the person who invented the IAT, and she had just done an interview with like Oprah, and then she sat down with me. She's like, "Oh, I actually have a couple ideas like that can make this better." And you're like, "Oh my god!" Like, why is she talking to me? Like, this is incredible.
Wow.
So the professors absolutely are on another planet, and the kids are smart. It's one of those things where like Harvard can fill its class probably 20 times over based on its applicants. If you get rejected from Harvard, it doesn't mean you're not smart. But if you got accepted, the odds are that you are. To a degree. I mean, there's a lot of other ways you can get in, as we found out from all these college admissions scandals.
Right, of course.
It's like, wow, how did that person doesn't seem very smart. How did he get in? Oh, his last name's on a library. Okay, that tracks.
Now that makes sense. Those line up.
Yeah.
Now the story I'd heard about you is you were studying. What was your major? Psychology. What I've heard about you is that you were going to Harvard. You're studying psychology, and then at dinner you told your parents, I'm going to be a comedian. I'm going to be a magician comedian.
Yeah. Well, that senior year, so I'm figuring out what I'm going to do. First I told them I was going to be a folklore and mythology major because I was taking a class on childhood literary culture.
Okay.
Childhood and its literary culture was the name of the thing, and it was about basically kids' books, which is like the best class ever. So we had to read Harry Potter and Alice in Wonderland and have very academic discussions.
Right. That sounds like a great class. That's the kind of conversation that I feel like I have with comedians all the time. Getting really serious, intellectual on the silliest things.
Exactly. So it's perfect training for comedy.
Perfect.
So we're having, and it's a seminar. So we're with Maria Tatar, who literally still publishes like the books, the ultimate like translations and forewords to any like Nordic anthology of German, myths or whatever. This is the woman that you go to. Like she's the best.
Right.
And she's like having a private seminar with us. And we're talking about Alice in Wonderland for 2 hours. It's like amazing. So I decide, well, that class was so fun. Whatever that topic of that class is, I want to make. So I'm a folklore mythology major. And my parents were like, no. We've been very nice, but we're not paying to send you to college so you can do
Study
fairy tales
folklore.
as a major. Absolutely not. There is somebody out there. There's at least 5 people in that program, I think, every year.
Right.
So somebody's coming home with a Harvard folklore and myth degree. And I do not want to be there when the parents find out.
Right.
So then when I was like, I'll be a psych major, they're like, thank God, as long as it's not folklore and myth.
Sure.
So I was a psych major, and I think in their head, they were like, he's going to be a lawyer. There's no pre-law at Harvard, so at least not having a pre-law was not an indicator. So like, they kept being like, oh, you're going to be the LSATs. Are you going to take the LSATs? I'm like, nah, we'll pay for tutoring. Like, do you want to get a tutor for LSATs? I don't think I'm going to study for it because I don't want to be a lawyer. Like, why? I'm not going to. You should just take it and then apply to law school just in case. But like, I'm going to do stand-up. Like I'm going to do comedy. And they were like, I'm sorry, what? And like, as the deadline slipped away and they realized that I was very seriously not going to take the LSATs or apply to law school.
Right.
And I was going to like move into the city and drain my savings, whatever I had been saving. Cause I've been working since I was like 12 doing bar mitzvahs and magic and stuff. So I had a little bit of savings. I was like, I'm going to use that money up and see where I end up. And so yeah, I didn't find out till later. I had like a really great dinner with my dad, like 2 years into comedy, and he was just like, "Well, now that you're like in a reasonable place with it, we were scared. Like
Right.
What do you tell your kid? Like, we want you to not starve to death,
Yeah.
but we also want to support you. But like, we want you to be alive."
Yeah. And I feel like
So that's the best version of it, is to be scared but not tell your kids. Like that's the best. They're the best parents. Like that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that they didn't make you like not do it, and then you have to have this whole like tragic runaway story, and then because that's when they would get murdered, and then like you'd start
like
doing,
Geraldo. Look at Geraldo. I just finished reading his book, his book, a biography about him. But he went to Harvard Law School. He did Columbia, then Harvard Law School, worked at a firm for a while. And it took him a while before he quit and did stand-up.
Wow. So you moved to Manhattan and then you start stand-up. What year was that?
I graduated college 2008.
2008.
My parents live in Long Island, so I moved home because I didn't have an apartment. I got my apartment. I moved into the apartment that we're in right now, actually, this is sad. But
well,
December,
I think it's a very nice place.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cool. I'm finally looking for a new apartment. This like 13 years later, I think. But it's that was December 29th, 2008. And now it's 2019. So it's been 10 years. It'll be 11 years if I stay here till December. But so I've been in this apartment for 10 years. But I moved I remember December 29th, 2008. And it was full-time comedy. And I was doing I was making a little bit extra money doing I would edit your essays, your college admission essays through a website thing. So I could do it from home and do it on my own hours so I could still go out at night.
Right.
Or I could even work at 3:00 in the morning. It didn't matter.
Sure.
So it didn't affect my spots at all. So I can make extra money editing people's essays and stuff.
Gotcha. And I remember a little bit of this time because I think I called you once and was just sort of like, how do I, basically on Chelsea's encouragement, I was like, I got nothing, man. How do I get something?
Yeah.
I remember the kind of the details of that. Because again, going back to that mystery of how do you attract the attention of the people that will let you on stage or what have you. So where were you going when you first started? And also, do you remember a time when you started to feel like you're picking up momentum in comedy in New York?
Yeah. I still feel like that. You never feel satisfied. But I moved into the city having been passed at the Ha Comedy Club, which no longer exists. Thank God. But
isn't it called LOL now?
They're different organizations run by different people, but there's a lot of overlap of people.
Gotcha. Okay.
But Ha Comedy Club I remember I'd been there in the summers because I had started a show senior year of college in New York because I was living in New York in the summer. So I was already producing a show basically once a week at the Stage Theater with my buddy Dave, who had just graduated. So we were producing a show. So I knew I had that to come into. I had a weekly show of my own. And so I could practice my shit.
Yeah. And
then I got passed at Ha, and Ha is the worst club ever. It was very much pioneered that model of I'm going to hire a ton of ex-convicts to stand on the street and sell you tickets.
Right.
And then people will come in. And but on a Saturday night they could do 6 shows or something. Sometimes 8 shows, something insane. So you could do 30 shows a week at that club.
Yeah.
And they didn't care. You could audition. It was very easy to get an audition because you just walked in and they're like, yeah, fuck it, go on stage. Okay, you didn't murder a person literally, so fine, you're good.
Okay.
Are you willing to work for free and endure horrible conditions? Yes, done. We'll have you here 30 times a week. So you're working a million, you're doing so many spots. It's knocking all of the Harvard stuff off of me.
Right.
Because you're going from these smart crowds where they love a Heisenberg uncertainty principle joke to tourists.
Right. To
just
just
we
be
don't want this.
Just basic human experience, drinking kind of jokes.
Yeah. So you learn, okay, I have to adjust my set for the crowd writ large.
Right.
And so you do Ha, and then Ha, the next club up on the ladder at that point, this is going to be a museum of clubs that don't exist, was Times Square Art Center.
I remember Times Square Art Center. I remember doing the mics there when I first moved here.
Yeah, and it used to be the Laugh Factory.
And then
they lost the license, so they just changed it to Times Square Art Center. So it was TSAC, which sounds like a really bad disease. But, did you hear about Meredith? She got the TSAC.
She got the TSAC.
Pass it on to her kid. He got the TSACs.
Oh, man. They're going to be a family of TSACs. Just all of them.
But I remember hearing from somebody oh yeah, the booker, there's a new booker. It's basically the bartender is now the booker. It's day 2 of his job there. I walk in with a folder that has a resume and a headshot and a DVD. And I go, I'm a comedian. I'd like an audition, sir. And he didn't realize, I think within 5 days, he probably was so inundated with people asking for auditions that he realized that he can't just give an audition to everybody who asks for one.
Right.
But I got him before he knew what was going on.
Right,
so he's
right.
absolutely, this is my job, is to audition people and to see people that request an audition. So I got an audition right away, and he loved me. This guy, Dennis Gotti, who was very nice to me, and he booked me a shit ton. And those were 20-minute spots,
Oh,
and they
nice.
were paid.
Great.
$75 on the weekend or something. It was nuts.
Yeah.
And Greer Barnes was there.
Oh, Greer Barnes. And getting able to do 20 minutes, that's
I didn't
good.
have 20 minutes. I was like, oh no. He's like, do you have 20 minutes? I was like, absolutely. And in my head, I was like, oh shit. I've never done 20 minutes. This is not good.
Right.
So eventually I filled it out. It was
Sure.
you do a little crowd work and you pad it a little bit.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're I'm going to do every joke I've ever written. There's no chance of this joke isn't going to work here. I have to do every joke that I have in my quiver.
Yeah, we're gonna do the ones even if they're not gonna work. We're just gonna try to sell this with personality.
The jokes. Yeah. Thank God I had a good set.
Yeah.
And so then I was in TSAC and I was like, whoa.
Right.
And then from there I went to Caroline's because Caroline's, they have competitions. So anybody can enter those and you can get seen. So I was at the Andy Kaufman Awards, which happens to be at Caroline's, and Caroline was there. So she's like, I emailed her blindly. I was like, I would love to pick your brain about, I'm a new comedian. She's like, yes, please come in, which is the nicest thing ever. And that corresponded with John Panette, who I'd met in college and had given me his cell phone number because he's also one of the biggest sweetheart.
Oh, John Panette. He was the get out of the line. That guy.
Yes.
He was so funny. I'm sad he's dead.
Me too. Especially because like he was always the fat comics who were always like, John, you need to lose the weight. Like it was a bad idea. But he was losing the weight. He was like in the process of like slimming down when he had his like, his what I think was a heart attack or something.
Yeah.
And it was just like he was doing the right thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't
right.
like there's some comics that are just like so fat the whole time, and you're like, what do you
right.
It's just crazy. But anyway, I'm trying to think of why can't I think of names? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But John was so nice at Harvard, and he was like, because he was just coming in to speak as a speaker, because he was around Boston, and he knew somebody at the campus, so he came, and he goes, "Here's my cell phone number. When you think you're ready, text me, call me." Actually, I don't think it was even texting. It was that long ago. It was like, "Call me."
Right.
And you can open for me, which is an incredible offer.
That's so
And
great.
I sat on it. I sat on that number. And then when I got the meeting with Caroline, I called John and said, "I see that you're at the schedule soon. I just performed at Caroline's. I think I'm ready, or I think I'd like to do it." And I come into Caroline, and Caroline goes, "Oh, do you know John Panette?" And I go, "Yeah, I do actually." And she goes, "Well, you should open for him." And I was like, "Well, he said I can open for him either Thursday or Sunday of his weekend that's coming up." And he said, "I'll talk to him. You'll do both."
Nice.
And so I did a Thursday and a Sunday, and that got me into the lineup of like opening for people at Caroline's. So all of a sudden I had 3 clubs, and I was also doing all of my producing. I was producing 3 shows a week at that point.
Right. Oh, wow.
Just running around like a crazy person. So between all of that, all of a sudden I was like working. I was really working.
Yeah.
And you got open mics, and you got indie shows, and
Yeah, totally. That's awesome, man.
and then there were some clubs where it's like you're working at Caroline's, and then you're trying to get past it. Like I remember Dangerfields was like the hardest club. I got past at the Cellar before I got past at Dangerfields.
That's
It was
wild.
crazy.
Who's at Dangerfields now? I've done one set there, and the old owner Julius liked me, but I could never.
He was never the owner, so he was just an outside producer.
Oh, okay.
Julius Donat.
Julius Donat. Yeah,
Yeah, he's no longer there.
Yeah, because I've done one show there, and I enjoyed it. I feel like it's like this is where they film those young comedian specials.
Yeah, and it's unchanged. It's a time capsule.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, yeah, it's like a portrait of what New York was like when that club was built.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it there. I generally like. I feel like I'm in show business at a comedy club.
Yeah.
It's a kind of fun feeling. Like I love doing alt shows because I feel like you can like be a little more experimental or like try new things. Like whenever I'm at a club, I feel like a real responsibility to do as well as I possibly can.
Yeah, and then a theater is like the next. Where you're like, oh my, that feels a big theater. That's like the ultimate show busy. Like, whoa, like I got a dressing room, and like it feels like you're on Broadway. Like it's when I did The Illusionist.
Yeah. Did you perform in Australia?
I did for like 3.5 months. We did 22 shows at the Sydney Opera House, though.
Tell me about that, because that's when I think of famous theaters, I think the Sydney Opera House.
It was
is
nuts.
like number one.
The first day when you walk up to it, because every tourist walks up to it, and I was like, I'm gonna be inside that. Like this is ludicrous. And it's not a great room for comedy. It's not built for comedy.
Right.
It's very big, and the sound gets sucked up. Like comedy, you want short ceilings, you want things to be echoey, and I always find that rooms built for music, they're trying to minimize echo.
Yeah.
They want that note to hit once and then get to the back of the room and then stop.
Right.
But with laughs, you want it to ricochet all around the room. So you want that echo.
Yeah.
So you want a sloppy building.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want a building built for acoustics. So like Sydney Opera House is the best venue. It's so beautiful, but it's tall. It's so fucking tall. So laughter can go up. So it's not, you want it coming at your face. So you have to recalculate a lot. It's still an amazing, but like, yeah, when you get to go into your dressing room at the Sydney Opera House it was like a couple weeks that we did in a row. It was crazy. I had to keep reminding myself, because there'd be times where we did 3 shows in a day, which were exhausting because I was hosting it. So I'm on stage for basically 2.5 hours straight.
Wow.
With little breaks here and there, but you can't even go to your dressing room because by the time you get to your dressing room, you have to introduce the next act.
Right.
So 2.5 hours, 3 times in a row, and then you have to immediately go home because you have to wake up and start it over again. So you're like exhausted.
Yeah.
And I had to constantly like do these checks with myself where I'm like, don't ever complain. Don't ever be upset. Like you're at this. Like this is an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I remember seeing when you were posting about that. I was like, that's amazing. Harrison from the Pit mics.
Yeah, exactly.
I always come back to that because it's just it's so thrilling to me to like all these people that were like my my peers, like I was in the mix with everyone, and now to see you like on TV and like doing like huge beautiful famous theaters. Or I remember messaging Adam Conover when I was going to work one morning, and I was like, and I saw his first post billboard for Adam Ruins Everything.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because I remember just like doing my first audition set at the Laughing Devil with that guy, and neither of us got passed, but another guy whose name I can't remember did. So just think about like, just be like, and now I'm also like doing as stuff that I enjoy. So I'm not like I'm not counting on Steve Hofstetter giving me like a spot on a Friday night for my happiness like I used to be. It's really
I'm still
great
that way
to
though.
see.
If I have only one show on my calendar for a night, or like, yeah, it's like a drug. I get that itch. If I don't, especially if I miss a night, God forbid, I'm just like, I need that hit.
Yeah.
Wherever I can get it.
Yeah, I need that rush of just.
Yeah, if you're going to be a comedy booker, realize you are a drug dealer and all the inherent problems that come with having an access to a drug that thousands of people are desperate for.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's just so few feelings that you can. Few things you can do naturally without like having to jump out of a building or like needing like a Schedule I substance.
Yeah.
Where you can get that kind of feeling, and just talking to people, like giving a really good speech or a TED Talk I don't feel is the exact same thing.
No, not at all.
But when you're just like I saw Dave Attell at Caroline's on last December.
Oh my God.
It was so good. Just being in that sold out room and then just hearing like the waves of laughter like start at the front and then hit to the back, and then
with him it's constant. It's like boom, 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 like unbelievable.
Yeah, just like nonstop, just jokes, just so good. He's amazing.
I saw Bill Burr's last show before he was headlining Caroline's, and then he realized he was selling it out so fast that he needs to do theaters. Mm-hmm. It was right on that cusp of
that's
he's
like
overselling this club. Like they're having to add shows, and it's like you need to just do the Beacon. Like you have your demand is bigger than this venue can fit, which is a great problem to have as a comic.
Oh my God!
But
yes.
seeing his last set of like headlining Caroline's dates, the energy, I was like, oh my God, I thought I was killing. That's killing. That's true. I have a long way to go.
Yeah, I love seeing stuff like that. I've seen him live once. It was in Madison Square Garden, which is fun, different kind of feel, but like just. What was crazy was it was the set he was doing that became his, I think, most recent Netflix special. I think he shot in Nashville, and he crushed for like an hour and 40 minutes. But what I liked about his special is he was doing like the same material, but you can kind of feel him challenging the audience a little bit. Like they don't get on board right away with the big, scary, angry redheaded guy.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool to watch that pull and then watch him still like win over the crowd. Like I always compare like, I don't know if you saw Infinity War, the Avengers movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I feel like Bill Burr would be Thanos' favorite comedian. Because Bill Burr has that great bit about sinking cruise ships.
Yeah, Bill Burr would be happy to eliminate. Well, George Carlin, I think, actually would. Thanos and George Carlin have the same idea of like, George Carlin would happily eliminate half the population. If we could choose who gets eliminated, George Carlin would have happily gone along with that plan.
Yeah, 100%. Because the whole people who should be killed joke. That was so good. So I got a couple other things I'm a little curious about. I know you've been on TV several times. I've
been eliminated from many reality shows. I'm very good at it. I'm very good at getting eliminated from reality competition shows.
Well, before I came here, I watched your Conan set, which I thought was a great set. I was still
Somehow
laughing.
I got eliminated from that. No, do you imagine? There's like an X, like a Simon Cowell X. You're like, what the fuck? This is the one show where you're not allowed to do that.
Right. The producers come in. It's just like, you know what? We've never done this.
The format.
We've never done this before. But
everyone on the couch gets to say what they think about your set. What? God damn it! Why is Andy Richter shitting on me?
There is a new format to the Conan show on top of the newer format.
Yeah, it's a game show.
So I was curious about your experience with getting that spot, preparing that set, and did that dramatically change things in your career after doing Conan?
No, there's nothing I've done has ever. I wish every time I do it, I'm like, this is going to be the one that dramatically changes my career, and it never does. The only difference is it's another credit, it's another thing. I really wanted the Conan. I really wanted late night. I felt like that was one of the rings. Like you kind of, there's certain things that you need to do to be like, I'm an accomplished comedian.
Right.
And one of them was like, do a late night. And I felt like a lot of my peers had done like 7 appearances already. And I was like, shit, I think I have the set. I think I have jokes that would work in this format. And I remember working 2 years to try to get on another late night show. I was close to getting on Letterman. Like the lawyers had approved my language on Letterman. Arsenio Hall had approved me once. Like I was approved. I basically killed a bunch of shows. I think I was supposed to be on like Lopez Tonight and also Arsenio Hall, and they both got canceled right before they happened.
Right. If you weren't getting eliminated from the show, you were eliminated.
I was eliminating the show. Yeah. It was me or them. It was
Were you
winner
also
take
booked?
all.
Were you also booked to do Totally Biased?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think Josh Gondelman was going to do Totally Biased, and the show got canceled.
Oh, that's so rough.
Yeah.
It's so rough. But the Conan, I emailed the booker directly with a set. I said, here's my set. And I gave him like 9.5 minutes of material. And he said, this is totally your call. We have to cut it down to like 5. These would be the jokes that I would choose, but feel free to not choose those. And any of the jokes that you sent me will be fine. So I think there was one joke we disagreed. I was like, I'm actually open with this. And that was the only change. And then I sent it to him. He's like, it's 5 minutes and 30 seconds. I would cut this joke. If you just send me a tape that's 5, we're good to go. Okay. So I sent him the 5, and then it's like radio silence for like months. I'm like, oh no, what happened? What did I do wrong?
Right.
And it's just like, once you have it, there's no reason to have any further conversation until there's a date. So I get an email on a Friday afternoon. I'm just like ready to relax. And I was like, I have a pretty chill weekend ahead of me. I only have a few spots each night. Like it wasn't crazy. And I get the email, you're going to tape the show on Tuesday. Do you want to fly out Monday or like Tuesday morning? And I was like, I'd like to fly out Monday if that's okay. And I was like, holy shit. I need to book a ton of spots.
Right.
And I did 22 shows in like 4 days or something like ludicrous. Yeah, it was 22 shows.
Wow,
in
nice.
4 days. Just boom, 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 just running. And I don't know if that was maybe too much. Although who was I talking to that's like the maestro of like, Jake Johansson, who's done a million.
Yeah.
He's in a million.
Jake's amazing. Yeah.
So I remember asking him, I was like, because Colin Quinn was always like, I don't want to overdo my set before late night because I want it to feel fresh. And I was like, Jake, you're the master. You've done more probably than almost anybody. Maybe Gulman. Gulman's done a lot, but Jake did more Lettermans than anybody else. And he was like, no, you do it until it's like autopilot. Like even if you like, you can do it in your sleep. Like do it to death. And so that's what I did. I could do that set in my like backwards and forwards without like. And but Conan was so pleasant. I was so used to doing these reality shows where you wait 15 hours to go on. And you don't know how it's going to go, and their best interests aren't necessarily in mind. Because if you do poorly, that's also good TV.
Right.
So they're not necessarily your friend. Conan, they want you to have the best set ever. They're on your team for sure. And so JP, the booker, is like the nicest man. Conan is super nice. Everybody's nice. It's super happy. And you get to just do a great set and have fun. And they're always like, treat it like just a set though. They're like, if you want to talk to the audience, like talk to the audience. Like treat it like you're in a club doing a set. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it was so fun. It was so fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
I loved the bit about the supportive boyfriend of the woman going to Mars. I watched that and then I was like still laughing
I met somebody who knew her.
Oh yeah?
Oh no, I met her actually.
Oh, did she hear that joke?
Yes.
Oh.
I met the lady.
Oh, I'm so glad to know that.
Yeah.
Did she think it was funny?
I think so. So. It was one of those things where like I was talking to a guy who's in the Explorers Club of New York, and it's like I think you have to find something, like you have to, which is very hard to do now. Like everything has been explored, and so like they were the article is about interviewing people at the Explorers Club because it's like, well, there's nothing left to explore, so do you want to go to Mars? And the girl was like, I would go to Mars, and my boyfriend's very supportive, and I was like, boom, joke, got it. And somebody was like, this is the girl. I was like, what the heck? Like what? What?
That's amazing, man. That's awesome. And this has been really great. One thing I also wanted to ask you, you were a warm-up comic for Katie Couric.
For Katie Couric for a year. A whole year.
How are those sets? Because you've got to like be super clean and also be kind of a cheerleader in the middle of the day when they tape, yeah?
Oh yeah. And it's at 9:00 in the morning and I didn't want to give up my spots. I was like, I'm still doing the same schedule of stand-up, but now I have to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning, show up to the studio, be ready to roll at like 9 or 10. And I made it a deal with myself, which is probably a bad idea, which was if I'm going to do this, I need to get better at stand. Like it's to better my art. So I'm not going to be one of those warm-ups who comes out and does like a dance competition. I'm going to do jokes, even though that makes my job 100 times harder.
Yeah. Because
if you just walk out and you put 3 of those, housewives on stage and you go dance, it's the easiest thing in the world to kill with that.
Right.
So that made my job a lot harder. But it was good for me because I worked out, you're working out jokes, figuring out what jokes work, and you have your little set list. And like, this is and Katie was really hard because some shows were serious. It was like, this is the show on cancer. And you're like, oh my God, how do you do warm up for that?
Right.
So that's hard.
I bet.
And then they took the show to LA, and then the guy who was doing warm up in LA, who I actually love, this guy Gary Cannon, who's the warm up for Conan. So when I did Conan, he stopped by.
Oh, cool.
It was so sweet. Gary stopped by. Gary's amazing. And then one of the guys in the band for Conan, his kid goes to magic camp, so he stopped by. And then another person in the band knew this other guy that I was working with. So all these people kept stopping by my door, like, "Hey, this guy said to say hi." So it was like just this wonderful, warm feeling. But so Gary does that. He does some dance stuff though. And so when they come back, they're like, "We really like the dance stuff. Like, you should do the dance stuff." So I was like, okay. So for the last month, I was doing a little bit more typical warm up. And then when I did that, I was like, oh, I know why they do that. This is a lot better. This is a lot easier in terms of energy, and it never misses. You have a
pretty
silly
much
lady.
Works 100%.
If you pick the right 3 people and you make them dance like an idiot, it's always going to work. And then you give them T-shirts and everybody is thrilled. And and you have a sound and lighting guy. You're on a TV studio, so they're gonna make the lights funny, the music is funny. You just, as long as you're friends with the guy in the back, you're gonna be great.
Gotcha.
So that definitely was easier, but it's an interesting experience. I walked into it thinking I'm going to be so funny that they're going to put me on the show. And that is the worst possible way to walk into a warm-up gig, because that is not your job.
Right.
Your job is not to get on the show.
Yeah. Your job is to make the show better.
Make the show better. And if you're on a Rachel Ray, where Rachel Ray uses her warm-up in the show constantly, this guy Joey Cola, who's the godfather of warm-up, that's great. But it's a tough gig, man. There's some people out there, like Ryan Reese has been warming up Seth forever. I think he's doing a documentary on warm up right now, so that's going to be really fascinating.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah,
that
it's going to
so
be
interesting.
Great. So there are guys who do it, and it's one of those things that's I'm glad I got out of it eventually. I would still do it. It's still a muscle that I have, and I'm glad I have it. But yeah, it's funny. It's a hard fucking job. I would hope that if I ever got on a panel on TV, I'd acknowledge the warm up, because that's that means the world to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
As it would mean to me. Even if during the commercial break, anytime there would be a comedian on Katie, and if any of them acknowledged me, I was always like, that's one of the good ones, because they get it. They get how crazy hard this is.
100%. I always try to think about that. I have this idea that if I am successful, that I would want to help and acknowledge the other people that are still working and underappreciated. That's important.
Well, the blonde girl with a high voice from Big Bang Theory, she worked at Ha Comedy Club with Thomas Kelly, who's the warm up for The View, and when she was on the show, she threw to Tom. It was like, I started out. They were like, oh, you started out doing stand up. I did. One of the guys, your warm up is one of the guys I started with. Isn't he amazing? And got them to clap, and everybody on the panel, in The View is like, yeah, Thomas is the best. So now he has this great tape of everybody saying he's great.
That's spectacular.
And also, why wouldn't you, as a comic, this is the PSA, if you're going to be on TV, even if you don't know the warm up, acknowledge the warm up. He's one of your brothers or sisters doing the thing. And also, why would it's to your benefit?
100%.
I knew that the people, I remember Nikki Glaser was on Katie Couric. She was on the panel, and I'm friends with Nikki.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't think I'm going to go out of my way to ensure that I'm this girl, Nikki Glaser, is the funniest person. You guys better laugh. And really make sure she has the best possible set.
100%.
Because this is my friend.
Yeah.
I made sure everybody had a good set, but why would it be nice to the warm up? They're very important.
100%. Oh, if I ever get to do something with Nikki Glaser, I'll remind her of the time she accidentally double booked spots at the Devil, so I had to call a cab so that she could basically race out and then get to her next spot on time.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I had this cab waiting. I was like, right here, Nikki. And she's like, oh, thanks. Well, she's super nice. She also liked one of my my most successful tweet. She and Gary Goldman did. I had this idea because a friend of mine who I used to work at the Canadian consulate with came to hang out with me at an open mic once, and he was still wearing his suit. So like all the open micers were like,
oh, I saw that tweet.
Yeah.
Every open mic should hire a guy to stand in a suit and take notes in the back.
Yeah, just
everyone would try harder.
Yeah, because you need to. I mean, there's still that 10% that's just going to be crazy no matter what. But like, I always like, and even when I do shows now, I have the couple new things I want to do, but I always am trying to do as well as I can because I'm just so appreciative that someone would ask me to be there.
Yeah.
What do you want? What's something that you want to accomplish next when it comes to comedy? Do you want to travel more? What's the project that you want to get done?
There's two that I'm working on that I'm hoping to accomplish by the end of the year. So this will keep me honest. Let's hope I accomplish at least one of them. But I want to. I don't have an album.
No, you don't.
I don't have an album, which is crazy. And so I'm recording an album, and I'm very excited about it. It's like it's time to put an hour out somewhere and make it available and put it on radio and sell it and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. I need that. And then the other thing is take my magic special and film it.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where like you wait for, like I had a blog, it still exists, but I want a Netflixspecial.com. Mm-hmm. And I think we're in a point now where like you look at the Andrew Schultzes and the Corinne Fishers and all these people who make their own way, like they just create a big audience and they do their thing. Like, you're doing this with a podcast. Like,
yeah, trying to.
You don't need anybody's permission. So I have the ability. I produce television. I know how to do it. So there's no excuse for me not to make my own special and put it out however I put it out.
Absolutely. And I think that would be really, again, you could almost be like, you could do like a Carlin AM FM. Like you have the comedy side of you and then the magic side of you. And it's like your whole oeuvre. And then you can just put it out for the world to experience. That's awesome, man. I'll keep you honest. Maybe once it's finished, we'll come back on it. I can come back and we'll promo it.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah. I really appreciate that you would take time to talk to me and be generous with your knowledge of
my pleasure, man.
Of New York comedy. I definitely am leaving this conversation knowing what I should be working harder on and what I could be doing to get to closer to the place where you're at now. So I appreciate you always like being. I appreciate your candor with that information.
Oh, my pleasure. And any help you need, just let me know. As always.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Harrison. I really appreciate it. That was a really like energizing and inspiring conversation, and I did leave that with a clear plan of how I can not only continue to grow this podcast, but also to boost my stand-up as well. So thank you, Harrison, very much as always for your time and for your candor. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys again for listening. If you enjoyed the show, we are on iTunes and Stitcher. You can leave a review or share a link with a friend. That's a way to help grow the show. You can like the Facebook group, facebook.com/awesomedisasterpod. And I'm on Twitter @ComicWillCarey. And you can follow the podcast @AwesomeDpod. Let me know where you guys are. I want to come and say hi to you guys and do stand-up in your city or country because I'm global, as you may have heard with my recent episode with Tom Rhodes. I would love to get to Antarctica someday. I still have to perform in Antarctica, Africa, and Australia. And then I'll perform on every continent. So if I do nothing else in comedy, if I never get on late night, if I never get a half-hour special, I want to say that I can do that. So if you need me to come do stand-up, I'm there. Thank you guys again so much for listening, and I'll see you next week between Awesome and Disaster. Take care, everybody.